first and foremost, comps now, if you're thinking for appraisals or pricing, need to be run in like a very short window. It doesn't matter what happened a year ago. A lot has changed in 12 months. We're looking like 3 to 6 months tops, right? It needs to be hyper specific. But it's interesting because you talk to sellers, they feel like they're going to sell no matter what. There's this sense of invincibility. Everybody wants what I have to offer right now. I don't really have to try that hard. It's actually, I've even seen it where they're devaluing what we do a little bit, right? It's easy to sell, right? Anybody could do that now. But then the flip side is they also want to sell at the peak value above what anybody in the neighborhood sold for because they talk to their neighbor and they think that they can get that. It seems in some ways like it's setting up for unrealistic expectations. It cannot last where sellers can take high-def pictures and get multiple offers over ask forever.
Well, it's the I want my cake and eat it too philosophy, right? I want everything. It's kind of like all these years we've always told people, you know, if the market's down for sellers, that means you're going to get a better deal on your buy.
Right.
And if the market, you know, and vice versa. And everybody wants everything all at once right now. They're figuring, I'm going to make $1 million over here and I'm going to steal it over there. And that's just not how it works.
Right.
So sellers are really trying to wrap their heads around, or they should be, what's really happening? Or are we shifting? Or is it seasonality? And how do I price? And how do I stage? And how do I market my property in the best possible way? Because guess what? There is not a buyer for everything, as the old saying says.
Right.
Unless you make it look like buyers want it to look.
What types of tangible advice are you giving your sellers right now, assuming that we're coming out of the COVID craziness, right? We're going to go back to a more standard marketplace. Sellers are going to have to market their home to try and get the attention of buyers because they're not just going to be, you know, cherry picking. What are you advising your sellers to do to prepare for winter's coming, holidays coming, the new year is just around the corner? What are, you know, some tangible steps or advice that you're giving people right now?
Okay, pricing aside, because that's
right.
always the number.
Separate of pricing, because I think that's always the biggest one, right?
Yeah, you know, you want to make your home as easy to look at as possible. So for example, when you walk into a property and they have 97 pictures, the buyers spend half their time trying to see if they know those people and do they recognize them, do their kids go to school with them. I don't want to take their attention away from the house.
Absolutely.
So depersonalize, again, like we always told them, depersonalize a little. It doesn't want to be sterile. You're moving anyway, so start boxing up, getting rid of, packing away things that you don't need, because most buyers don't understand a property unless it's a fairly clean slate.
I feel like the best feedback I get from buyers or on listings that I have is when the sellers are living a minimalist lifestyle. There's nothing out, everything's clean, they don't have a lot of furniture, right? And it's not that people really live like that most times, but it looks very nice. It feels kind of like a hotel when they walk in. I think that's sort of the experience that they are looking for, and then they can kind of insert their memories or thoughts on what they do with the space. To the personalization side, I would also say now everything's online, and we don't always have the ability to take these photos off, even though we can, you know, take them from the MLS when it closes. But if you have family photos and things like that, that's all going to be on Google forever for now. So I think people need to be thinking more and more moving forward about what types of personal photos, even if they're in the background of a listing photo, are getting posted online. And do you really want that to be publicly accessible?
That's a great point. You know, I have lots of pictures around, but when I list a home for sale, things get put away.
Right. Have to.
And your buyer just needs to be able to look at it like you see model homes. They have, one picture, one vase, one plant.
Right.
Because
the
they
stock
want
photo
the buyer,
that came in the picture frame.
Yeah. Yeah, and they want the buyer to be able to go, okay, I can see myself in this property.
Right.
So, but outside of that, landscaping is another one. I just had a client who they traveled a lot. They never really did much with their landscaping, and they thought, I don't need to do anything. And I said, yeah, you really do. Because first impression, when you walk up to that house, if it's dead grass and plants and dirt and a dirty front doormat and cobwebs and
before they even made it through the door, they're already having thoughts of leaving.
Yeah. And what does that tell them? It tells them you don't take care of your property.
Right.
So when I tell my clients, take care of the small details, because that tells buyers you take care of the bigger details, there's a reason for that. If there's broken switch plates, for example, how simple is it to change that? But if you didn't, as a buyer, I'm thinking,
right.
well, what else didn't they do?
It's landscaping, I think, is one that people skip over. When you think about updates to a home, your mind goes interior, probably rightfully so in most cases. But when I had a listing recently, it was over by Humboldt Park here in Chicago, and their backyard was a concrete slab. The whole thing was a concrete slab leading to the garage. They didn't use it. They didn't like it. It didn't show well in photos. So we talked about replacing it, and they ended up ripping out the concrete and putting in grass. And then all of a sudden, their backyard and the photos we had of the backyard were like the best part of the listing, right? And that's exactly why the family that bought that home. So it didn't cost them as much as they thought it would, but the investment that they put into it helped them sell their home in a weekend. And I think that was truly just because of the exterior work that they did.
Well, that's the key. When you're talking with sellers about doing things like landscaping or anything that's a little more significant, painting is another one, they go, well, am I going to get it back? Well, yes and no.
Right.
You may or may not get the dollar for dollar value, but you're going to sell your house faster, and time is money.
Right.
So they sometimes
right. And
have
it's hard
to
to draw an exact line, but in this case, they sold on a weekend and they sold over list. So did they get it back? I hope so. I think so.
Probably.
Right. Would it have been harder to sell without that yard? 100%. I know that. So yeah, I think that's a good one. I love the landscaping. I do think staging more than ever. I feel like there was a moment where I felt like I was winning the staging battle, and every client I spoke to was like, okay, I get it. I see the value. Let's do that. And then COVID happened, and I felt like all momentum was lost. Now everybody just, they don't see the value in doing that right now, or maybe don't feel it's necessary. Do you feel that's going to make a pretty strong comeback, the need for staging?
Absolutely. You brought the point up earlier how there are certain people who are devaluing a little bit about what we do. And when the market is such where you plunk a sign in the yard and people are lining up around the block,
right,
it's a different thing. But that's this big a smidge of time. Most of the time we have to really press and push and promote, and you have to understand how to promote a property properly. And part of that is presenting this product. I have this thing, I'm presenting it to the market. So I'm finding that my sellers got very comfortable going, nobody's going to care. The market's crazy. I don't have to fix the broken window and paint the front door and all that.
Right.
And so, yeah, we are losing that battle. But one of the benefits I bring to the table is I will bring in a stager if we need one. I happen to have a lot of staging capabilities myself. So often we can just move this, take that out, shift things around.
Right.
But it doesn't hurt to bring in a stager, and you'd be shocked at what a minimal amount of money in one afternoon can do for your home. It's a complete transformation.
I agree. And a lot of times it's using things that you already have and just moving them around, reorganizing, making the room look bigger than it maybe even is. And that's all part of just presenting your home in the best light. I agree. I bring staging professionals in all the time. Maybe I just don't trust my eyes as much as you do, but I prefer to have their opinion. So
I had a client one time, we staged their house and they pushed. They didn't want it. And I staged with their own stuff and moved things around. And I don't know, a week or so later, she calls me and she's kind of teary-eyed on the phone. And I said, what's wrong? And she said, well, we love what you did with our house. We wish we had done it sooner. And now we don't want to move. Okay, well, that's good too. So
I get that feedback a lot. I think that is, if you think about how you want to list your home, your marketing presentation, the way your home looks should be so good that you're like, man, I don't want to leave. That's like the goal, right? If you accomplish that in all of your marketing, you probably hit the nail on the head with what you should be doing.
I get that a lot from clients. They'll go, oh my gosh, my listing looks so great. I would buy this house. I said,
that's if you think that, other people will think that too. Yeah.
And simple things you can do, when it's really important to get good photography. Yeah. And when I see a listing and somebody's took the pictures on their phone and they're crooked and they're dark and there's dishes in the sink, it makes my skin crawl.
Yeah.
And you're not representing that client or that property. So I meet my photographer. I have an excellent photographer, Tim Schultz with Bright House Photography. And he meets me out at these properties. I make sure there's fresh flowers because life is a very positive thing.
Right.
And we walk together. And if there's something, toilet paper that you can see or soap on the sink or whatever, you move those things and you present a simple, clean palette.
Right.
And people appreciate it.
Well, and unfortunately, things like that can ruin a photo, right? Somebody left old bananas on the counter, and now that's all anybody can see in your kitchen photos. So that stuff does come into play, and it ends up being things you have to look for. I would say too, like when you're listing, what I've found beyond just the marketing side of it, I think information is powerful. Think about how many questions you have as a buyer, or your clients have as a buyer. When you come into that situation, you're just asking everything you can think of about the building, about age of things. So I think as a seller, the more that you can do to provide information up front is better. I think, having a list of the upgrades and updates that you've done to your knowledge and your memory, so that when those questions come, you can provide it and you have the answers. I think that helps create a better showing experience when people are coming through, rather than making them leave like, oh man, there's so much uncertainty with that home. They feel like every question's been answered. They know the dates of everything. The home looks great. They've seen the photos online. They've got a floor plan, right? They have everything that they need to make a decision. Ultimately, that's the goal. You want to help a buyer make a decision about your home. That's got to be the home for them.